Bitcoin continues its downward trend, breaking below 85K and entering uncharted territory of price discovery. Have we bottomed out, or can we expect to go lower from here? Plus, we take a look at the most accurate barometer of where the Bitcoin price is headed, global liquidity, and compare these numbers to previous cycles, and the results will shock you. Could all of this just be a warm-up to the real explosive bull market to come? And finally, Ray Dalio makes some interesting remarks about the technological time warp we find ourselves in today, and its impact on inflation, as we ponder Bitcoin's place in a rapidly changing world. The Bitcoin price has continued its downward trend as it broke below $85,000 per coin yesterday and now enters uncharted territory in terms of price discovery. Now, what do I mean by uncharted territory? Well, take a look at this chart showing the Bitcoin price with trading volume bars on the left-hand side. These bars indicate heavy buying and selling. You can see the volume is extremely elevated in the nearly 8-month consolidation we saw last year when the price ranged from 60 to 70K. Again, you can see relatively high trading volume in the range we were in the last 3 months when we bounced between 91K and the current all-time high of 108K. And as you can see from the price, we basically teleported through the price levels we're in now, between 76K and 87K. And this is why we see so little trading volume in those levels. So we're likely to continue to see some volatility here, and we could very well correct further and retest the $75,000 range. But we could also see increased buying in these levels and build our base here in the $80,000 zone before going higher. The market is doing what it does best, as it searches out if there are more buyers or more sellers in these uncharted price levels. So yeah, I know, groundbreaking stuff. The price could go up, or it could go down in the short term. The more interesting thing that I've got my eye on lately, though, is perhaps the most tightly correlated metric to Bitcoin's price, and that's global liquidity, or the amount of base money sloshing around in the economy. The Bitcoin price has very closely tracked global liquidity for many years now, and typically lags it by about 2 to 3 months. As you can see from this chart, Bitcoin has continued that trend, as we saw a decrease in global liquidity from around September to December of last year. And right on cue, Bitcoin lagged by 2 to 3 months, and now we're seeing the downtrend in Bitcoin's price. The good news is, as you can see, the global liquidity trend is on its way back up this year. And so if this trend continues, we should expect Bitcoin to follow and begin to rise within the next few months. Macro investor James Lavish was on What Bitcoin Did this week, talking about Bitcoin's correlation with global money supply and whether this should be considered a better barometer for Bitcoin than the 4-year cycle around the supply halvings.
Bitcoin has been an incredible gauge for global liquidity if you look back in time. The only thing is Bitcoin, it trails liquidity. So if liquidity is up, then it takes Bitcoin somewhere between 2 and 3 months to catch up. So if you overlay those charts, though, the Bitcoin chart and the global liquidity chart, man, they look really close. This may not be forever. I don't think it will be forever. But today, it is absolutely directly correlated to the money supply.
So do you think as Bitcoiners, instead of paying attention to the 4-year cycle in such a great deal, because that obviously has diminishing effects, do you think liquidity is really the big driver of Bitcoin?
That's a loaded question, but it is it absolutely matters. You have to have liquidity for an asset like Bitcoin over the last few cycles to expand and for that price to rise. Will that break eventually? That being so tied to the liquidity cycle, I believe it will. We're not there yet. We're in the middle of it still, but it won't break until there's a reason for people to own Bitcoin other than speculative.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, most people just believe it's speculative. You and I know that's not the case. You and I have a much longer view on this.
Yep.
And we understand that Bitcoin it's an important allocation to have in your portfolio for multiple reasons. One of them is not just to keep up with the money supply, because money supply drives inflation and Bitcoin goes up with the money supply and saves you from inflation.
Lavish brings up a good point, that although this correlation is in fact a reality now, it's actually due to the way the market predominantly sees Bitcoin, and that's still as a speculative asset. Once the market begins to see it as more than that, and as anyone who studied it for more than 100 hours knows, this correlation is expected to break, eventually. But for now, the Bitcoin price is tightly correlated with the amount of money in the system, and that money supply is again on the rise. Have a look at the previous Bitcoin bull cycles compared to global liquidity levels, and it paints a pretty compelling picture. During the 2013 cycle, M2 money supply saw an increase of about 26%. In 2017, the M2 money supply saw an increase of about 22%. 2021, which was on the tails of the massive COVID relief money printer bonanza, saw a staggering increase of the money supply by nearly 50%. So far in 2025, we've only seen the money supply increase by 0.5%. Let that sink in for a second. So far this Bitcoin bull run, we've seen all of this incredible price movement past previous all-time highs and above 100K, with basically no new money being added into the economy. This leads me to wonder if we've even started this bull run yet. And this gets back to whether you believe the Bitcoin cycles are more to do with the supply halvings or more to do with the global liquidity and money printing. I tend to lean on that it's a bit of both. And this would tell us that so far Bitcoin has gone on this incredible run above 100K without one of the major drivers of its price increase. Lavish then went on to list all the positive tailwinds that Bitcoin has going for it in 2025. Stuff we've talked about on the show many times. Stuff like the ETFs, institutional and corporate adoption, the repeal of SAB 121, the ability to do options trading on Bitcoin, and the fact that we have the most pro-Bitcoin US administration ever.
He's talked about Bitcoin a lot, as has his family and his cabinet. You've got people around him who, like David Sachs and Bassett, these guys own Bitcoin. Lutnick. So that's all a big deal. And you've got Senator Lummis, who's been driving this bill, the Bitcoin Act. Remember, again, Trump he's got a huge ego. He wants the stock market up at all-time highs. He wants financial stability, wants the economy roaring. And the way to do that is to keep kicking this can down the road, creating liquidity, making money easy, and keep going. So those are all tailwinds for Bitcoin on top of this expansion of liquidity and liquidity getting easy or continuing. It's already been ticking back up. It's just going to continue probably into the end of this year, into next year.
So if Trump wants a strong, booming economy, which was a huge part of his campaign, he will have to start printing again soon. And this, ladies and gentlemen, could be the final catalyst that actually starts Bitcoin's bull market. There's a good chance we haven't even gotten started yet. So strap in and buy these dips. And you can do that through Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching Swan Bitcoin in the App Store. Swan has the fastest and easiest onboarding experience in the industry. You go from sign up to buying real Bitcoin in minutes. And don't forget to check out Swan's new premium Bitcoin rewards credit card, which we plan to launch in the coming months. Visit swan.com/card to sign up and get priority access today. And quick shout out to Mara, the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. Now, I want to leave you with some thoughts on the changing world we find ourselves in and Bitcoin's place in it. Legendary investor Ray Dalio was on Tucker Carlson recently, and he talked about this time warp we find ourselves in technologically, specifically with AI. And he said something I found interesting regarding its effects on inflation and markets.
There's still debates. You're effectively an economist. The debates about supply side versus demand side. What is the near and far term effect of these economic policies?
We're going to be able to understand at a micro level how things work better. Nowadays, we or policymakers like the Federal Reserve think about something like inflation.
Right.
And there'll be maybe 5 measures of inflation. And we're using the term inflation because our minds are limited in its capacity of the number of things we could think about.
Right.
When we're now in this new reality, which we now are, you can go down to a molecular level, essentially, and saying, I could see all the different transactions of what was bought and what was sold and why. And now I can really have a level of understanding and be able to deploy resources at the individual molecular level, just like we can do it in biology or physical existence and so on. But it is, of course, a two-edged sword, right? It'll change who controls it, who has access to it, who can use it detrimentally to other people. All of these things are part of the question.
Is there any way to avoid totalitarian social controls under AI, with AI?
I think there's a question of whether you can have social and totalitarian controls, or maybe you just have anarchy. I don't know where we're going. I do believe we're going to go through a time warp. What I mean, it's going to feel like you're going through over the next 5 years.
What I find especially fascinating about this is that you can have a brilliant mind like Dalio and his ability to predict and be ahead of the trends, and you can still miss the forest for the trees when it comes to the massive impact of Bitcoin. Everyone's talking about AI, but many are missing the transformation Bitcoin represents in reshaping the power dynamics of the most powerful social control mechanism, our money. To answer Tucker's question at the end, where he asked if there was a way to avoid totalitarian social control under AI, the answer to that question is with Bitcoin. Bitcoin offers financial sovereignty and censorship resistance in being a protection and option against something like central bank digital currencies, which will most definitely be programmed with the help of AI systems. As governments integrate AI into surveillance, financial control, and information warfare, Bitcoin provides a decentralized, censorship-resistant, and sovereign alternative that protects individual freedoms. While AI can be a tool for oppression in the hands of centralized powers, Bitcoin remains an incorruptible system that empowers individuals to opt out of control structures and operate on their own terms. So I leave you with that. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Like this video, share it with friends and family, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok next block.